Speaking of rain and getting wet, this Bezat Hashem, this coming Shabbos, of course, is Parshas B'Shalach. Parshas B'Shalach, of course, contains within it that awesome seminal moment in Jewish history when we experience Kriyas Yamsuf. And of course, Kriyas Yamsuf is such a significant moment in Jewish history that we recall it every single day, and we recite the psukim of Kriyas Yamsuf and Shirat Hayam every single day. Very interesting. Before we actually take a deep dive, no pun intended, into Kriyas Yamsuf, into the waters of Kriyas Yamsuf, it's important to note that the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, says that the reason why we read of Kriyas Yamsuf before the experience of standing at Sinai, of Mammon Sinai, is that Kriyas Yamsuf is the proverbial Tvila b'mikvah, immersion, communal immersion in the mikvah before the experience of revelation at Sinai. With that as an introduction, I want to take a look today at some of the psukim related to Kriyas Yamsuf, as well as a number of beautiful eternal messages that we can learn from the experience of Kriyas Yamsuf. Of course, the Torah tells us, if you take a look on our source sheets, text number 1, Vayet Moshe et yado hayam, Vayolech Hashem et hayam, Beruach Kadim, Azah kol halayla, Vayasem et hayam l'charava, V'yibaku hamayim. And Moshe put out his hand over the waters. Hashem caused the waters to cause a great wind to blow all night long, and the sea split. V'yivaku hamayim, and the sea split. V'yavo b'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha. And the Jewish people went into the land, into the sea, b'yabasha, on dry land. V'amayim lehem choma, miminam u'mismalam. And the water formed walls around them, to their right and to their left. It's very interesting. Now, when we first read this pasuk, we envision what? The sea, so to speak, splitting in two. But of course, we have numerous Mamari Chazal that tell us otherwise, that no, really, the sea split in 12 different sections. Each of the Shvatim went into the waters, and each of the Shvatim had their own pathway that split. The water split on either side of that pathway in 12 different little paths. Okay. And then we read if we go back all the way to the end, we see once again reiterated. Uvnei Yisrael chubi yabasha b'toch yam, v'aymayim lahem choma, miminam u'mismalam. So this idea is mentioned twice, okay, which must mean it's very significant. That the Jewish people walked on dry land within the sea, and the waters parted on either side of them, okay, to the right, and formed walls to the right and to the left. So what does it mean, vivaku hamayim? So Rashi, in a famous statement, says it wasn't just the waters of the Yamsuf that split, but what? Kol mayim sheba olam. All the waters in the world, Hashem, at that moment, when he made that miracle of Kriyas Yamsuf, all the waters in the world split. So what does that mean? So we're going to today learn from essentially 3 modern masters. And the first of our modern masters we're going to learn, that's our course, right? Modern masters. The first of our modern masters we're going to learn from is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Horowitz, known as the Padaka Rav. And the Padaka Rav, in his great sefer, Beit Aaron, says the following. This is text number 3 on our sheets. Vivaku hamayim. What does it mean that the water split? That Hashem calls all the waters in the world to split, quoting the Rashi, Kol mayim shemolam. Ulechora lama nachutz neseh likva kol mayim shemolam. And why, he says, we have to ask the question, why at this miraculous moment, okay, when the sea split, what's the significance if we accept Rashi's interpretation, okay, based on the Chazal, that not only did the sea split, but what? All the waters in the world split. What is the significance of all the water splitting at this miraculous time? The miracle was simply, would have been incredible if it was just what? The Yamsuf split. So what does it mean that all the waters of the sea split, of the world split? Uperush Magid HaKadosh Mikajnitz. He says the great Kajnitzer Magid, Rabbi Yisrael Hapsin, the first Rebbe of Kajnitz, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, he explained this as follows. Sha'kavana shebechol adorot kishayiyu Yisrael beit tzara chas v'shalom yivaka lifneihem hayam mikocho shel Moshe shebaka hayam. That what is the Kajnitzer Magid? How does the Kajnitzer Magid interpret this teaching of Rashi? That in all generations, when the Jewish people were facing an Eit Tzara, a time of trouble, of difficulty, of pain, of challenges, what happens? The waters will split before them, meaning miracles will come unto them, okay, through the power of this act of the water splitting before Moshe Rabbeinu, before Am Yisrael. Says the Kajnitzer that Rashi's interpretation that all the waters shed ba'olam doesn't mean only all the waters in the world at that time. It means all the waters sheba'olam for all eternity, in all generations. Anytime the Jewish people are facing a tzara, a difficult period in history, there within those difficult moments, there's the capacity what? For the miraculous. The very word nisayon, which means a challenge, okay, contains within it the word nes, the capacity for miracles. Anytime the Jewish people throughout our history have faced troubling, difficult moments, we find strength in recalling the great moment of the sea splitting, and we are encouraged to recognize and persevere against those challenges, and Bezrat Hashem, see miracles. V'hi aldat sheperish hatzadik HaKadosh Rebbe Reb Baruch Mimezebaz Zecher Tzaddik Livracha. He says that not only does the Kajnitzer teach this, but the earliest of the Talmidim of the Baal Shem Tov, the grandson of the Baal Shem Tov, Reb Baruch Mimezebaz, in his Sefer, okay, Botzina Dinahora, he explains this based on a famous Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara in Chulin tells the story of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair. Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair was going to fulfill the mitzvah of Pidyon Shvuyim, of redeeming hostages, something that's very relevant to us today, right? And the Gemara says the following, okay, that when he comes to the river, okay, the river Ginai before him, when he's going to redeem hostages, what happens? The river splits not once, but 3 times. There are 3 circumstances. Without going into the whole Gemara, there's a story there where the river that is blocking his path to go redeem those hostages is split before him 3 times. And after this happens, the Gemara says, Amar Rav Yosef says, Kama nafish gavra mimosha v'shitin rivyon. He says, this Reb Pinchas ben Yair was even greater than Moshe and the multitudes that went through Kriyas Yansuf with Moshe. Why? The ilu hatam chad zimna v'hachatalta zimna. Because for Moshe and the multitudes of the Jewish people going forth from Mitzrayim, the sea split 1 time. But for Reb Pinchas ben Yair, when he's going to redeem hostages, the sea split for him not once, but 3 times. And so therefore, says Rabbi Yosef in the Gemara, it must mean that what? Reb Pinchas ben Yair was greater than Moshe and the multitudes that went forth from Mitzrayim. Oh. So now, we're going to ask a question on that. The Padaka Rabbi is going to ask a question on that. How could we possibly say that he was greater than Moshe Rabbeinu? Okay? Or afilu kim Moshe. Or he's even like Moshe. Halo k'tiv, we have a pasuk. V'lo kam b'Yisrael k'Moshe od. That there'll be no one like Moshe ever again amongst the Jewish people. That as great as we may have many other great leaders, but none of them are going to come close to Moshe. They're all pale in comparison to Moshe Rabbeinu. Acha kavana mi Moshe. It must mean what? No, it's not that to like Moshe, or that he's greater than Moshe, but rather that he had got the capacity to cause the river to split before him. Where did he get that magic, that capacity from? From Moshe. It all emanates from Moshe. The mikoach shevaka Moshe hayam b'pam harishona. From that moment to the power of when Moshe split, caused the sea to split that one the first time. Nishar mizeh hakoach l'Reb Pinchas ben Yair livkoa shalosh pamim. The power, okay, remained, and it's that power that allowed Reb Pinchas ben Yair to split the river 3 times. Okay, v'zeu kavana v'vaku amayim. Okay, and this is what it means that all the waters of the world split. Kol mayim shebaolam, all the waters, not only in the world at that time, but for all generations. Dechol b'kiat mayim shebaolam shia be'ezedor al yudei tzaddik. Anytime the proverbial waters in any generation split through the actions of a tzaddik, meaning anytime there's a miraculous event that unfolds to the Jewish people, that unfolds through the blessing or the davening of a tzaddik, hakolhu mikocho shel Moshe shevaka yam, okay, az. Okay, and this all emanates what? From the first time such a miracle happened, when Moshe Rabbeinu brought that power into the world. So seemingly, I'm going to come back to this idea, seemingly, Kriyas Yamsuf was not a one-time occurrence. And one of the reasons why we learn about and why we dive in and we say these psukim every single day, we're reminded of this eternal message, and that is what? At least according to the Parak Harav, that is what? That not only did Hashem cause the sea to split and allow Moshe to bring that power into the world, but just as Moshe Rabbeinu was the tzaddik hador, and he becomes the conduit to bring that miracle into the world when Klal Yisrael needed it then, so too in every generation, okay, the tzaddikim of every generation have the capacity to be the conduit, to bring miraculous events, to help bring salvation to Am Yisrael in every single generation. And we're going to come back to this idea as we go on. Now, if you turn your sheets over, we're now going to learn from the Ibn Ezra. Of course, the Ibn Ezra is a Rishon, an important Rishon. And the Ibn Ezra is going to focus on this idea of the fact that the Torah repeats twice that the Jewish people walked on dry land within the sea. Okay? And this is text number 4. And the reason why it's mentioned that the Jewish people walked on dry land, Pam Shenit, a second time, why this idea is mentioned twice. Okay, it's mentioned twice because what is happening, says the Ibn Ezra, that Hashem caused a miracle within a miracle, a dual miracle to occur, to unfold during those moments of Kriyas Yansif. Kizel there b'Yabasha v'zeh tovea. What happened, says the Ibn Ezra? Just as the Jewish people were passing through the sea, what was happening? Simultaneously in the very same sea, the Egyptians were drowning. Okay? The Jewish people were walking, so to speak, on dry land. They walked right through the sea. They traversed the sea. And at the same moment, the same time, the Egyptians were drowning in the same sea. Okay? And he says, "V'zeh karov mizeh b'yam echad." This is occurring simultaneously in the same. They were close to one another in the same sea. Ki Yisrael hayu rabim, because the Jewish people were many, many, many hundreds of thousands. V'yesh rabim mehem shekfar avru be'et tovei Mitzrayim v'yesh mehem shehayu az ovrim. He says there were many who had already crossed the sea as the Egyptians came into the waters and started to drown, but there were still many who were what? Still crossing the sea, and at the same time, there was a miracle within the miracle. The sea seemingly split, and the Jews were walking on dry land at the very same time that the Egyptians were drowning in the sea. So it's very interesting The Ibn Ezra says that this represents that dual miracle, and that's why the pasuk is repeated twice. There's a slightly different take I want to share. It's not on your sheets that I saw last evening. I was in the OU office for a while, waiting for the rain to clear, and I saw in the Sefer TORAH this beautiful idea in the name of Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kasav, Schusa Yagin Elenu, one of the great Hasidic masters. And this is what Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Kasav says about this pasuk of the Jewish people walking on dry land within the sea. Listen to his words. Hagalim hayu aleim. The waves were upon them, meaning what? They were also in the water. Okay? What does it mean the Jewish people walked on dry land, b'toch hayam, within the sea? He says the waves were upon them. The water was coming down on them. Vehem halchu b'bitachon kazeh ki'ilu bayabasha hemochim. And they walked through the waters with incredible trust and faith in Hashem, and they believed what? That they were walking on dry lands. Dry land. Says the Rabbi of Kasav, okay, which is not so dissimilar from the Ibn Ezra. The Ibn Ezra says what? That the Jews were walking on dry land at the same time, and they crossed the sea on the same time, at the very same time that what? The Egyptians were drowning in the sea. And so says the Rebbe of Kasav, Rabbi Menachem el Kasav, that the Jewish people were actually walking in the waters. They were walking in the sea. But they had such bitachon, they had such faith and trust in the Ribono Shel Olam, that what? It was as if, in their minds, they were walking on dry land. Okay? Habitachon natan lahem et haregesh shehem kamo b'yabasha. Their trust and total faith and total trust in Hashem, that Hashem will bring them through the waters, okay, created the feeling for them that what? That they were actually walking on dry land. But the reality is what? According to the Rabbi of Kasav, they were literally walking through the water. They were immersed in the water. Hashem, we have another religion that talks about walking on water. Hashem allowed them not to walk on the water, but through the water. And they survived. That, says the Rebbe Kasav, is the idea. They had such trust and utter faith in the Ribono Shel Olam that it was as if they were walking on dry land. Okay. We're now going to hear from two other modern masters. We're going to learn two small pieces to bring this all together from the house of Slonim, from the Chassidus of Slonim. We're going to first hear from the Baal Birkas Avram, Rabbi Avram Weinberg, who was the Rebbe of Slonim during the days of the Shoah, and he survived the Shoah and came to Eretz Yisrael, where he rebuilt the Slonim Chassidus. We're going to learn just two short ideas that the Birkas Avram sees in these psukim, in this idea of the Jewish people walking on dry land within the sea. So this is text number 5. And this is what the Birkas Avram has to say. Vayavo b'nei Yisrael b'toch hayam b'yabasha. Okay, our pasuk. B'shem Maran Admor Moreno Rav Shmuel Zchuto Yagin Aleinu. Okay, as his predecessor, one of the earlier Slonim Rebbe said, "B'toch." The word "b'toch," meaning within, is gematria Shem Hakadosh Chatach. Shu Hashem Shel Parnasah. That b'toch is the same letters and equal in gematria to the word Chatach, which is one of the names that we refer to Hashem as the one who distributes Parnasah. And therefore we can explain based on this idea. Kihine b'nei Yisrael ba'omdam al hayam hayu mukafim mikol hatzadim v'lo ra'u lifnehem shum motza. That the Jewish people, when they stood at the Yam, they were surrounded, okay, on all sides by water or by the Egyptians behind them, and they couldn't they didn't see any natural way out to be saved. Ubekoach Emunah azar lahem Hashem yiparach b'derech shelo hayu yicholim la'alot al da'atam mikodem, v'yavru b'toch hayam b'yabasha. And through their faith and trust in Hashem, okay, Hashem allowed them to recognize and realize a way out, a way towards salvation that they could have never fathomed on their own. That is what? To go into the waters and they'll walk on dry land within the waters. And now says the Birkas Avraham is going to give us an eternal contemporary message for us based on this idea. Uchamochein b'inyanei parnasa. So too when it comes to parnasa. Gam ka'asher yudi eino ro'eh al pi teva shum derech me'ayin yavo ezro ya'amin sha'kol b'ashkachato yibarach v'kadosh baruch hu yotziu min ha'metzah. When a person is facing financial difficulties, okay, and they feel like they're drowning in the proverbial sea of debt and struggling, okay, if you put your faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and you recognize that our parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, what will happen? U'b'schut ha'emunah mamshich lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yeshua mimakom shelo eleh b'da'ato. Just like at that moment when the Jewish people came to the sea and they couldn't imagine how are they going to survive this? The Egyptians are on our tail, the sea's in front of us. Where are we going to go? They put their trust in the Ribono Shel Olam. They went into the sea and they survived. They crossed the sea and persevered. So too when we're facing challenges financially, says the Birkas Avraham. Okay, the word betoch is similar to chatach. Okay, that Hashem is the one who distributes our parnasa. And if we believe and put our trust that indeed our parnasa comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when we're facing those moments of challenge and we put our trust in Hashem, we'll see Bezrat Hashem that Hashem brings us all the parnasa we need at the right time and the right moments. And 1 second, we'll take questions at the end, okay? V'chein merumaz bazeh linyanim ruchanim. And he says there's another idea. So the first idea is what? The first contemporary message for us is, eternal message for us is what? That just as when we faced that moment where there was no hope and no way out, we went into the sea, we put our trust in Hashem. Okay, so too when we feel we're drowning and we're facing financial difficulties and hardship, we put our faith and trust in Hashem. Hashem will bring us the parnasa we need at the right time, says the Slonim Rebbe. Now here's the second idea that the Birkas Avraham of Slonim introduces. And he says that also, so too, in areas of ruchnius, of spirituality. B'toch hayam b'yabasha. Within the sea, we are on dry land. L'fa'amim Yehudi hu b'b'chinat yabasha, shu yavesh mibli lichlechut d'kedusha. All at times in our lives, what? A person feels dried out spiritually. Okay, they're devoid of any of the fluid and excitement, okay, of spirituality. We're going through a dry spell in our ruchnius, in our spirituality. Okay? And that Margish Hester v'itimat alev. And he feels what? That Hashem is hidden from them and distant and closed off from his heart. As sarich la'amin shakol b'ashkacha pratit v'gam yivushat libo hi mimeno yiparach. But a Jew has to believe what? That everything comes as a result of Hashem's divine supervision. And even when we're going through those proverbial spiritual dry spells, that too is part of what Hashem is challenging us with. Okay? As we said earlier, every nisayon, every challenge, the word nisayon contains within it the word nes, meaning that every challenge we have in our lives that we face in our lifetimes has within the capacity for us to experience a nes, Yeshua Hashem, Ke'arafayim, that Hashem can bring a Yeshua, a salvation, at the blink of an eye. And that is the eternal message, says the Slonim Rebbe, the Birkas Avraham, of Kriyas Yamsuf. Whether it be in areas of Parnasa, whether it be in areas of spirituality, a Jew has to put their full and utter trust in the Ribono Shel Olam and believe indeed Yeshua Hashem Ke'arafayim. That's the first of the two Slonim Rebbes we're going to learn from. Now we're going to learn from the Nesiva Shalom, okay, of course, who succeeded his father-in-law, the Birkas Avram. The Nesiva Shalom becomes the Rebbe of Slonim in 1981, and he dies in the year 2000, so he's the Rebbe for about 20 years. Before that, he served with distinction as the prominent Rosh Yeshiva of the Slonim Yeshiva Mea Sha'arim. And of course, his Svarim are amongst the most popular Sifrei Chassidut in the world today. And we're just going to learn a short snippet from the Slonim Rebbe about this idea. And it's going to start by quoting the earlier Chassidic master, the Noam Elimelech. This is text number 6 on our sheets. We can explain this based on the teaching, what's written in the Noam Elimelech, al pasuk on our verse, Uvenei Yisrael hachu b'yabashah b'toch hayam, and the Jewish people walked on dry land within the sea. Now listen to the words of the Noam Elimelech. Sheyesh tzadikim asher roim et gadlut haborei v'romamut elokuto tamid al kol tzad v'sha'al. That there are righteous individuals in every generation that are able to see and intuit the greatness and loftiness of Hashem in everything that exists, in every step and action that unfolds before them. They see the Yad Hashem, Me'ashamayim, U'shmei Hashamayim, from the heavens and beyond the heavens, V'chol tzva'ah me'artz, V'chol asher la, and everything that appears here on land. Mikol abriyah, Heim ro'im et borei, Kol ha'olamim, ha'mechadesh b'tuva b'chol yom tamid ma'aseh bereshit. They see in everything in creation. There are unique individuals that have the capacity, what? To see Hashem's ongoing presence. And that Hashem renews every single day, constantly, the process of creating the world. V'hema tzadikim. Now listen to how he couches this idea. That in every generation there are these unique tzadikim. Who are they like? And who are these tzadikim? V'hema tzadikim roim tamid kamo shera'u Yisrael be'et giloy hanes shel kriyat Yamsuf. These unique individuals have the capacity to see and experience God's miraculous presence in the same way that the generation that experienced Kriyas Yamsuf saw the miracles unfolding before their very eyes. Shinyano hayad k'dichtiv uvnei Yisrael hachu b'yabashah b'toch hayam. This idea is based on our pasuk, and the Jewish people walked on dry land within the sea. Listen to this beautiful idea of the Noam Elimelech. Shakadosh Baruch Hu ishpia lahem az Emunah kol kach chazaka ad shebeyabashah hachu kemo b'toch hayam. Listen to this beautiful idea, Rabbi Osai. Says the Noam Elimelech. We tend to read this pasuk as what? It's focused on those who are crossing the sea, that they were on dry land when they were in the midst of the sea. No, says the Noam Elimelech, it's the opposite. When the Jewish people had already crossed the sea and they were already on Yabashah, they were already once again on dry land and looking back at the waters, they were so impacted by that revelation. They were so transformed by that miracle that the miracle stayed with them. And even though they had already crossed the sea and they were now once again on dry land, it was as if they were what? Still within the waters, still within the miracle. They were on dry land, but it was as if they were still b'toch hayam. Hainu shegam b'yabashah ra'u et haborei kol hamim. That is to say that even though they were once again on dry land, they saw and intuited Hashem's presence, the Creator of all worlds. His greatness and His wonders. Just as they saw and experienced within the Yamsuf and the moments of that miracle of the Kriyat Yamsuf. That's how we can understand the verse in Tehillim as well. That the land, the sea was turned to land. That which we experienced, okay, in the sea also continue to stay with us once we were on dry land. Ki mikriyat Yamsuf nishar hagiloi gam liyabasha shegam b'yabasha ra'u et borei kolamim. That they were so impacted by what they experienced, by that miracle of going into the waters and the sea splitting before them, that it stayed with them. And they, even though they had already traversed the sea and the miracle seemingly had ceased, they once again continued to see Hashem's presence and to feel Hashem's presence. This is the great level, spiritual level of Kriyat Yamsuf. Shagam b'yabasha ra'u elokut v'nikva b'hem Emunah b'yabasha kamo b'toch hayam. That even once they had already crossed the sea, that Hashem's presence stayed with them, and it established for them such faith that even as they were once again on dry land, it was as if they were still in the sea in the midst of the miracle. And by the way, this is very consistent with the idea that we learned in the name of the Kasher Tzemagi that the Padaka Reb brought in the first piece we learned together, and that is the idea that Rashi suggests that Kriyas Yamsuf, when the waters split, it's talking about all the waters, not only in the world, but all the waters of eternity. That the miracle had such an impact on the Jewish people and on the Jewish psyche. And that, by the way, explains why we read these psukim every single day, to be reminded, to be mitchazek, and strengthen us in this idea and this belief that Hashem brings miracles, and that Hashem brings miracles even when we seems to us that there's no hope, or that our situation might be hopeless, or we might want to give up. A Jew never gives up. A Jew always believes Yeshua Hashem ke'arafayim. And we learn this fundamental idea, this eternal message of Emunah, we learn from the seminal events of Kriyas Yamsuf. My friends, as we prepare to read Parshas Mashach, the Shabbos, to read of that awesome moment when the sea split, let's take to heart all these beautiful messages and believe wholeheartedly that just as in those moments when we stood at the sea, Hashem brought a miraculous salvation which we could have never imagined. Let's hold on to this idea that within every nisayon is the word nes. Within every challenge and difficulty we face in our lives, there's the capacity for miracles, and let's believe that indeed that's possible, and that Hashem can indeed bring a Yeshua Hashem Ke'arafayim, and they would be blessed to experience those miracles every single day. Have a great Shabbos.